The first time it happened, I thought it was just the wind. You always think it's the wind, don't it you? Or the settling of the house, the groaning of wood and nails as the temperature drops. You tell yourself it's nothing, because the alternative is too heavy to carry. It was 3 a.m, that gray hour when the world feels suspended in amber, and I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan as it sliced through the dark. That was when I heard it. 3 distinct, sharp raps against the wood of the front door. Knock. 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 I didn't get up. I held my breath. I waited for the sound of a voice or a key turning in the lock, but there was only silence. Thick, suffocating silence. I told myself it was a dream, turned over, and forced my eyes shut. It happened 3 nights later. I was sitting on the sofa with a book, the rain drumming a rhythm against the windowpane, safe inside the bubble of my living room. The house is old, built in the 20s, and it has those noises, those creaks and whispers that come with age. But this was different. It was deliberate. 3 strikes. Heavy enough to rattle the frame and its hinges. I froze, my finger hovering over the page. I looked at the hallway that led to the foyer. It was pitch black, a tunnel of shadow. I didn't move. I just sat there, my heart hammering a frantic beat against my ribs, listening. Asterisk knock. Knock. Knock asterisk again. I almost got up that time. I almost walked to the door to ask who was there, to yell into the night that they had the wrong house. But then I stopped. Because I realized something that chilled the blood in my veins. There was no pause between the knocks and the repetition. It was a perfect, unbroken loop. No breath taken. No shifting of feet. Just the sound of a fist hitting wood, echoing in the empty space behind the door. You know the feeling of being watched? It's not a dramatic chill, usually. It's subtle. It's the prickle on the back of your neck, the instinct that makes you check the mirror in the hallway, or look over your shoulder in an empty parking lot. For the next week, that feeling became my constant companion. I would walk into the kitchen and the air would feel pressurized, like the atmosphere before a storm. I would turn on the faucet to wash a mug, and the water would sound too loud, crashing against the porcelain, as if it were trying to drown out something else. I started sleeping with the lights on. Not the big overhead lighter that was 2x Bazinga, but the lamp on the nightstand, a small pool of amber light that barely pushed back the dark. It was enough to see by, but not enough to see everything. Theta-s the trick with light. It doesn't always show you what's there, sometimes it just shows you the edges of what you are afraid of. The 4th time, I was awake. I was waiting. I don't know what I was waiting for, maybe to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, or maybe to catch a neighbor playing a prank. I sat in the armchair in the living room, facing the front door, a baseball bat resting across my knees. The house was silent. The street outside was dead. Then, it came. Asterisk knock. Knock. Knock asterisk. The sound was dry, like bone hitting wood. I stood up. I gripped the bat until my knuckles turned white. I walked to the hallway. I didn't turn on the hall light, I wanted the advantage of seeing them before they saw me. I crept across the floorboards, avoiding the spots that creak. I reached the door. I leaned forward, pressing my eye against the peephole. The outside world was distorted by the fisheye lens, the porch light casting long, stretching shadows. But there was no one there. The porch was empty. The steps were empty. The street was empty. I stood there, confusion warring with relief. I unlocked the deadbolt. I opened the door. The cold night air rushed in, smelling of rain and damp earth. I looked left. I looked right. Nothing. Just the wind chimes hanging from the eaves, swinging slightly in the breeze. Asterisk clack. Clack asterisk, they sounded like knuckles. I closed the door, locked it, and double locked it. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay there, listening to the house settle, and I realized that the rhythm of the wind chimes was wrong. They were swinging in sync with the silence. They were making a sound, but the wind wasn't blowing. Theta S when I started noticing the other things. Small things. Things that, if I told them to you, you might dismiss. The milk in the fridge was sour before its expiration date, but only the carton I had opened. The photos on the mantel were straight, but they felt heavy. The air in the hallway was always colder than the rest of the house, pockets of frigid air that made the hair on my arms stand up. I stopped going into the bedroom at night. I slept on the couch, with the back to the wall, facing the door. I felt like a rat in a maze, waiting for the scientist to drop the hammer. I stopped answering the phone. I stopped checking the mail. I just waited. Because I knew the knocking wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was a Tuesday morning when the silence broke. I was in the kitchen, making coffee, the sun streaming through the window, making the dust motes dance. It felt normal. It felt like a house that wasn't haunted by a rhythm I couldn't escape. I reached for a mug on the top shelf. As my fingers closed around the ceramic, I heard it. But it wasn't at the front door. It was inside the house. It was coming from the hallway closet. Asterisk knock. Knock. Knock asterisk 3 taps. Light. Polite. Like a child asking to be let out of a game of hide and seek. I dropped the mug. It shattered on the floor, ceramic shards skittering across the linoleum. I stared at the closet door. It was closed. The handle was brass, tarnished with age. It didn't move. But the sound came again. Asterisk knock. Knock. Knock asterisk faster this time. More insistent. I ran. I didn't grab my coat. I didn't grab my keys. I just ran. I unlocked the front door, my hand shaking so bad I couldn't get the key in the lock, and I threw myself out into the street. I stood on the sidewalk, panting, looking at the house. It looked innocent. It looked like a home. But the window in the front door, the one I had looked through 100 times, was dark. I could see a shape standing there. Just behind the glass. A silhouette. It was tall, elongated, with arms that hung too low, past its knees. It wasn't moving. It was just standing there, watching me. I called a locksmith from my neighbor's house. I changed the locks. I installed a deadbolt that required a key on both sides. I told myself it was stress. I told myself I was working too hard. But you know, deep down, when the rational mind starts making excuses, the primal mind is already screaming the truth. The truth is, locks don't matter. Wood doesn't matter. The knocking wasn't about getting in. It was about letting me know it was already there. I stayed in a hotel for 3 nights. I paid for a room on the 4th floor, overlooking the city, surrounded by people and noise and light. I thought the distance would help. I thought the noise of the city would drown out the memory. I lay in the hotel bed, the hum of the refrigerator and the distant traffic lulling me into a false sense of security. I closed my eyes. I drifted. And then, in the darkness of my own mind, I heard it. Not muffled. Not distant. But clear, as if it were right next to my ear. Asterisk knock. Knock. Knock asterisk. I sat up, gasping. The room was empty. The door was chained. The